Hey everybody, welcome to Two Comma Coffee Club. Today we're doing another summit special with one of the teachers that will be teaching us on June 4th through 6th. And his name is David Breslow. He is an author, the author of Beyond the Words. He is a coach, and in my opinion, he is a fun-loving human being. Welcome.
Thank you, Lene. What a nice thing to say. I appreciate that. It's really nice to be back and talk to you ladies.
I know, it doesn't feel that long ago, David.
Yeah.
Well, that's because it was yesterday morning.
Just about. Yeah, we said we'd want to have you back.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. What was it? Maybe 2 weeks? 3 weeks? Maybe?
Probably.
I don't know.
Somewhere
I don't know. But since then, we've all read your book, Beyond the Words.
Oh, you have?
And none of us have actually discussed it with each other yet.
Oh, okay.
All I said to Valerie is make sure you have a notepad and pen with you.
Well, you're welcome to discuss it with me if you want.
Yeah.
I know the guy who wrote it.
I bet
really well or just so-so?
No, pretty well. Pretty well.
Have it handy. We did talk about the that we bring up. One of the key points, I think, is where people get stuck. I think that was one of the things we had said we were probably going to be looking at. Right?
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, you and I talked about that a little bit.
We did.
How people get stuck.
We sure did.
Mm-hmm.
How people get
stuck. You want to begin there?
Why not? Rather than be stuck, we might as well let's begin there. Because I think, the book itself, if we're going to focus on the book, I think the book goes into the main principles of what Neville teaches. And then you do provide more specific areas as you go. The further into the book that you go, the deeper it starts taking you and starts getting more into the details. And then the cool part of the book too is when you leave a little kind of present at the end with the 3 or 4 stories that your daily stories, you include some of those as really great teaching tools, that side of it. So it's a very fascinating book to get because it looks at Neville's work from all those different places and really from the way that you teach and coach Neville's work, and I think one of the things I love about doing this show, being in Two Comma Coffee Club, is whenever we have someone on, there's a unique way of, just as we're all unique individuals, we have a unique approach to how we are expressing what Neville taught. And we can be talking about, the same principle, your awareness of being as God, for instance, just to start, of course, right there. And yet each of us are going to use a different approach to how we want someone to understand that. And that's I think your book really goes in. And it's funny because, you're talking about Beyond the Words, but we do need a certain amount of language in order to get people to find them.
Beyond that,
where that's just the takeoff point.
Somebody said to me once that words are the least reliable form of communication. And they're right. I totally agree with that because only because, that's the language that we have here on Earth in the 3D world. So that's what we use. But what's fascinating about all that is that every word we say goes into a filter, and you have no idea what that filter is doing to those words, because everybody has their own human filter. You have your own past, your own perceptions, your own interpretations. Nobody has a clue what those are except you. Yeah. So I try to approach things. One of the interesting things that I take a look at, and this touches on the stuckness, so I'm not ignoring it completely. But if you remember in the book, I think I mentioned, because the book is mostly Neville and a little bit sprinkled in with what I tend to do. And
I like the mix.
been teaching a lot of what Neville, certainly not using the same language for sure, but
Right.
it's always fascinating to me that when I'm talking to someone, I use circle one and circle two as the language. Circle one represents, and I had a video about this up on YouTube where I had two tennis balls, very low tech, and I wrote the number one on one of them, and I wrote the number two on the other one to represent circle one and circle two. And I did that because I wanted people to quickly understand why we struggle when it comes to change, why we get stuck. So what I did was circle one represented your old mind. In Neville terms, that would be the old man. All of your experiences, all of your interpretations, all of your opinions, all of your beliefs, all your fears, your doubts, all that stuff exists in circle one. It's everything you know up until this moment in time. It's what you know. And circle two then represents all possibilities. Circle two, you could say now, knowing Neville, could be your imagination. There are no limitations in circle two. The deal is, though, when I'm talking to somebody, I'm talking to them from circle two. And I know they're listening to me from circle one. And so my job is to try to wake them up quickly. And I'm talking about somebody who might call me for the first time and who just wants to know about me and what I do and is it any good for them and all that stuff. But I know that if I just give them the spiel, that I know it's going into their circle one left brain, and they're hearing it the way they want to hear it, and they're hearing that, oh, he's a life coach, oh, he's just a sports psychologist, he's going to do the same thing they all do. That's what they're hearing, even though I'm absolutely telling them just the opposite. But I understand that I'm talking to them in circle one while they're in circle one, so they can't hear me, not the way I'd like them.
Yeah.
Hear me. So what I do is, or just throwing them off balance in some way, where they start to wake up and go, "What? What'd you say?" You know, that kind of. As soon as I do that, they've woken up, and I have a window to express what I want to express a little more clearly, and it will be received a little more clearly. So when it comes back to Neville, when we talk about getting stuck, that's one of the first ways, that distinction between what I'm calling circle one and circle two, or being awake and being asleep. I know that's in the book. That exercise about awake and asleep is the first thing I talk about with everybody. Because if you're not awake, how can I help you? How can I do anything if I'm not awake? Because the reality is you cannot make any new choices while you're sleeping. Okay, I didn't make that up. That's a truth. I have nothing to do with it. You cannot make a new choice while you're sleeping. Yeah. It's literally no different than when you're in bed.
Yeah.
You can't do anything new while you're sleeping. So people are talking to me all the time while they're dead asleep, and they want these answers. Can you give me some tips on how to play better golf, or how to do Neville, differently, and all this stuff? And I say, no, I'm not going to answer that question, because I know that if I just give you a new tip, you're taking that into your circle one. And we've already explained that at the time, so they know what I mean. You're taking that into your circle one, and it's not going anywhere because you're still sleeping. You need to be awake. So you do this awake and asleep exercise, which is in the book, and you become awake quickly. And the moment you're awake is that moment you have that window of opportunity to make that new choice that you never did make while you were sleeping, because you couldn't. It's not that you're not capable. It's just that while a human being is sleeping, they cannot make any new decisions or new choices. They don't have the resources, because circle one is loaded with everything you already know. It's very limited. It's very myopic. You can't go beyond it. But circle two, imagination, is unlimited, as you know. There are all possibilities exist. There's nothing in the way. But until you get into circle two, or awake, until you become awake, you can't take advantage of it. Does that make sense to you guys? It's not really It's not a statement I'm making to people. They go, well, how do you know that, Dave? How can you make a statement like that?
It just
well,
is. Yeah.
Well, look at your life. Look at all the things that have been happening that you don't like, and tell me that you were awake while you did that. So here's a couple of questions I ask people. You may enjoy this. While we're talking, and I'm kind of giving them the foundations of my program. I'll say, hey, do you consider yourself an intelligent person? And they'll go, yeah. Everybody says yeah. Sometimes somebody will say no. And I'll say, no, of course you are. You're an intelligent person. So here's my second question. Would you consider yourself a wise person? And some people kind of hem and haw because they're not really sure what I mean. And I'm not explaining it. I'm not defining it. I'm waiting for them to answer it. And most people will go, here's my third question. Would a wise person sabotage themselves the way you do in life or on the golf course? And what's hilarious to me is not even a half a second will go by. And they'll go, that? So that tells me that there's a part of you that knows, a part deep inside that already knows that if you were wiser, whatever that means, and I didn't define it, but you already have a sense. If you were a wiser person, you really are. How innate the wisdom, the innate wisdom that you have, the power that you have, because you wouldn't have answered it so darn quick. I'm literally not even finished. I go, no. And I've been asking this question for over 25 years. Happens exactly the same way every single time, and I'm not exaggerating. Everybody says no very, very quickly. It's hilarious to me. So that's kind of and the more awake they are, I know that information is getting in there. It's getting attached. It's getting connected. So again, back to Neville. Some of the ways we get stuck with Neville is things you are aware of. I know looking for results is one of them. Mm-hmm. Oh, where is it? I'm looking for my free lunch. I'm looking for the money. I'm looking for my SP, whatever it is. Well, she's not here.
Still waiting
every
for
morning. I get up and I'm hoping today's the day. Right.
And you're looking for the sign for that.
What do you think that indicates, or the universe, or whatever phrase you want to use? By doing that, what do you think the message we're sending is? Because we are sending a message. What do you think that might be? Anyone? I feel like Ferris Bueller's Day. Anyone?
Sorry, David, you cut out, so we didn't hear the conversation that just came before that point.
Oh,
you were asking us something, but we didn't get it.
Okay. What I'm asking is, by looking for signs and waking up every day going, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? What do you think the message you're sending is to imagination or the universe?
It ain't.
What do you think the message?
Yeah, that you haven't got it yet, whereas we've got to assume that we already have.
Exactly. So what you're really saying to imagination is, I don't trust you. You're not doing it. What you're asking me to rely on you, but it ain't here. So again, we don't realize we're subtly sending these messages all the time by all these little things we do to create obstacles. And one of them is looking for signs. The other obstacle we can create with Neville, or it's not just with Neville, it's anything. Anytime we want to make a change in our life, we create an obstacle by not believing anything, because we keep looking around and going, oh God, she's not here. She's still not here. And they keep telling me I need to believe in this thing. Well, how do I do that? Because the reality is I don't. I'm looking around and she's not here. And you're telling me just believe in it. Why? How do I do that? That's a good question. That's a question I've asked for a long
That's
time.
totally a plausible question, because we're so used to physically having things show up. So if we can't see it, then it can't be true. That's how we've been, that's how society is.
Well, I think the other part of it is that we're kind of used to being given information directly by somebody. It's like you go to the authority figure and you get, you ask a question, you get an answer, whatever it is. And because of that, when it's something we now are told is us and we can do ourselves, it's like, it's almost as if it's too much work.
Yeah.
It's too much work because there's nobody who's going to spoon feed us or hand us the rote answer. If it's not a rote answer that we have to dig for, Googling is easy, but if it's something you have to dig for, it's suddenly too much work. And
we've got to take the responsibility for everything then, haven't we?
Well, let's step back. Let's step back another step, if we may. Here's what's so funny about all of this to me is that Neville and everybody else will tell you we've been doing this our entire lives, right?
Sure.
Right.
Yet all of a sudden we learn about somebody like Neville, and all of a sudden it becomes difficult. Why?
That's it.
It's ridiculous that happened. We've been doing this since birth. It's just that nobody ever explained it to us. We didn't know we were doing it. We have been unconsciously manifesting everything our entire lives. And then all of a sudden this new age thing comes along, and everybody and their mother is out there being a coach and talking about, how the universe supposedly works and vibrations and energy, and Abraham and Dr. Joe and Neville come along, and all these people are all of a sudden discussing it. And then all of a sudden the world, society, is looking at this going, oh, how do I do that? And I'm sitting here going, what do you mean, how do you do that? You've been doing it your entire life. I have? Yeah.
I think.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say what I found, and this could just be what I manifest in my experience, just through working with people, is especially those who have gone through extremely traumatic childhoods or abusive relationships, anything like that, mental health disorders, like even being diagnosed with things, those, in my experience, have had the hardest time acknowledging their role in that, in the sense of imagining these scenarios and then watching it play out.
You mean a hard time understanding that they manifested that?
Yeah, that they're responsible for it.
I have,
because they feel so victimized.
Yes,
they feel that's right.
So that's kind of like my, I guess, niche, is bridging that and helping people like that specifically. And but I have noticed how it's very hard to move past that and to hear the different teachings and stuff and not get offended. Not go into, oh, here's just another way I'm being victim blamed, just like the court system does and just like this does and all that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a whole package deal.
Well, that's right, because their whole frame of reference.
I'm kind of losing you there.
Their whole frame of reference is being shaken. And when your entire structure that you have built your current existence on is being threatened in some way, whether it seems like a threat, it's going to be perceived as being destabilized or threatened. You're gonna hold on even more to it until that moment may come for some more than others, but will come when something finally, that moment hits, and then they have the realization and they understand.
It's because they're at war with themselves, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to accept that there's people in my life that their identity, well, just like every state we identify with until we realize, oh, it's just a state, I'm going to move. But if you're not there yet and you're just looking at the state and identifying with it and participating in it, victimhood being one of those really strong ones that people tend to just, old man will not leave. You can be 90 years old on your deathbed, still clinging to that, you know.
Sure.
I have to for myself be okay with that. You know, I've done my part in that, but that I've just noticed, that's just something that I've noticed just from working with people for years.
Uh-huh.
David,
Well,
from your last video, the last episode that you did with us, The Reality of Spirituality, you touched on somebody called Dan about going to war, but we didn't get to discuss it. What was that about?
I didn't understand the question. Say it again.
In the last episode you did with us, you mentioned about going to war with yourself, and you mentioned somebody called Dan, but we didn't get to discuss it.
I mentioned somebody called Don.
Sorry, you cut out again. What was the?
Yeah, this has been a whole. Everything's been cutting out the entire time, on and off. Did you say I mentioned somebody named Don?
Oh, Don. Yeah, it might have been Don.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that part.
Or Dan.
I do remember Dan. Oh, I might have been giving an example. I'm not sure who Dan is, but I do remember talking about going to war. And I'm a classic example of somebody who's been going to war his entire life. In fact, the joke about me is that I'm like the rebel without a pause. And because everything I looked at, I was rebelling against, just about everything. You know, I could go anywhere and start a battle with somebody in my mind, because my self-concept was, and you know, you need to be able to be honest about this, and not everybody's willing to, but my self-concept was somebody who needed to continue to keep that protective wall around him. And one of the ways I did that was by going to war with people. Yeah. So I could see you at the grocery store, and I could make a war out of whatever I'm looking at you doing. I could start, you know, criticizing you and jumping all over you. You'll never know it, but I'm doing it in my head, especially if you cut me off in the 15 and under line and you got 30 things in your cart. Okay. I'm going to war with you. I start calling you all sorts of names, and oh, here we go again. Hey, shit, this, you know, the world sucks. Why can't you read the damn sign? Well, you know, I got to say something now. Why isn't the cashier saying something? I go through this entire battle, and it's exhausting, but I was really good at it. And I did it for many, many years. I could go to war over anything, and I'm making it up as I go along. Incredible. But you get really good at these things. And so these are these kind of circle one habits that I'm talking about. One of my circle one habits is Dave goes to war with a big smile on his face. Ha, 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 ha. I'm going to war. No weapons other than what's going on in here. Mm-hmm. And so going to war is really the inner battle. Let's use that word. The inner battle that we come across when we're facing something that makes us uncomfortable or fearful, or breaks some kind of a wall that we believe, some assumption that we assume we need to keep in place. And so anything that has anything to do with that causes war to begin. And the war is always internal. Sometimes it'll leak out externally by, you know, I might say something stupid, or I might be a little frustrated, and I might make a snippy comment to that lady in the cart in front of me, you know, or the cashier. When I finally get up there and I look at her and I go, why the hell didn't you say something? You knew damn well that lady only had 40 or 50 items in her cart, and you saw all of us standing here, and I got my 3 things in my hand. Okay, you know, you see that kind of thing. But I've learned over the years that battle is nothing And I completely was using my imagination to create this really uncomfortable feeling for myself, this tension, the stress, the anxiety, the always needing to be up front, up there to fight the battle, always needing to be at the ready, it's exhausting, man. And I see a lot of people on social media. They don't use the words, but you can tell they're at war by the way they write their long, their 7-paragraph post.
Yes.
And they're at war. The war is within them, but they're battling within themselves. And one of the ways they're trying to relieve that is by posting something, hoping somebody will say something that'll help relieve that nozzle, that war nozzle, so the air can start coming out of that war balloon a little bit.
Yeah, but then they only invite a reaction, and then they get another itch, and that they need itching.
That's right.
Need scratching.
But that's why self-concept, as Neville always says, is the key to everything. It's the core of that area by which you're manifesting everything. So one really needs to be willing to be look in the mirror and be honest and go, wait a minute, what really is my self-concept? Is my self-concept really that I'm a weak and powerless person? Mine was, and I didn't want to admit it. I felt it all the time, but I didn't want to admit it. I knew that it was. I could feel it. I felt powerless almost everywhere I went. And then the war would begin, the comparisons between me and you. Because I felt so powerless, I had to feel more powerful. And the way for me to do that was to cut the hell out of you down, right? Make you look horrible.
So how did you wake up, David?
I woke up because I finally got tired and exhausted. And sometimes I would take it so far that somebody else would help me wake up by looking at me and, saying something that would literally damage me at the moment, but calling me out on it. Not really damage me, but they call me out. Somebody who's aware of these things would call me out on it and tell me what I was doing. And I'd have to sit there and go, yeah, you're right. Shit, you're right. Pardon my French. But, and I eventually just had to look in the mirror and say, okay, Dave, I'm going to really look at you today. And I'm going to see whatever I see. And it's obvious to me that my life experience is a direct reflection of my self-concept. And I looked back and I saw all these areas of my life that I did not like, relationships, money, all the major areas that I was never really comfortable with. And then I realized, well, wait a minute, that all that stuff was playing out beautifully because of your self-concept, which was horrible, just horrible. And I'm not saying that as like a heavy judgment, but just as a description, just horrible. And then I started to put the one and one together there and say, okay, there it is. It's right there in front of me. Look at my life. It's right there. There's no place to run. There's no place to hide. It's right there, man. Your self-concept, which was so low and so much on the lower side of things, on the negative side of things, and look at all the scenarios that are bearing that out. And I saw all that and I went, oh my God, there it is. I couldn't hide from it anymore. So every day I kind of wake up and I go, okay, are you going to lay down the weapons today? Just lay them down. And I wrote a few stories about that actually on the Vibe site that hinted at that. And it's always taking an honest look, like buying the pearl. I used to think you did that once and you never came back to the store.
Right.
And then I realized now you do it all the time because you're always going back to the old man every once in a while. So you got to buy the pearl again. And so I go to war. I still go to war sometimes. I mean, come on. I've been doing it for 50 years. What makes me think that's going to disappear? Just like that. It doesn't work that way. I've got such a steady habit with it. I'm so connected with it. It's just not going to disappear, but I can move away from it by being aware of it.
Yeah, by noticing.
Be the observer and say, there you are. There you are. I'm going to lay the weapons down right now. And I do. If there's a better way to do it, I'd love to hear it. I don't know.
No?
Well, no, I mean, yeah.
Unique to you. And that's how it works.
What's that?
Your way is unique to you. Just like my way. I could explain my way of doing things all day long, but it's unique to me.
Right. Absolutely.
But you know, in your book, you put there's a section called 11 questions, and of course you designed those to help trigger, as you say here, the feeling of the wish fulfilled. We actually haven't been talking about that today. We've been talking about the opposite, which is being at war, because when you're at war, you are the furthest thing away from the feeling of the wish fulfilled, because you're always fighting with yourself.
That's right.
So, and that comes from the feeling of powerlessness. You know, it's so funny when you were talking about those aspects of being at war and feeling powerless. You know, what came to my mind was Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. And that's really going back. But the character of Travis Bickle, which was very tragic, and very disastrous. Yeah, you talking to me?
You talking to me?
And you know that he ended up being a mass murderer. I mean, it was a very sad thing. But that was because he felt that was the only way he knew to go into war and try to find his power. But of course, it was totally missing the mark. So here you're really looking, you know, you're going in the opposite direction. Here is where you help the person to build up into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and saying that a belief is not a thought about something, it is really a feeling of certainty. And that is the opposite. This is the feeling you want, is the feeling of certainty, because you feel, you know, we say, I feel confident, not I think confident. And it's true. It's the feeling, as you were saying in the beginning, not the words, because the words are the unreliable narrator, as it were, the bad narrator, but because you can say something, but you can mean something else, or you won't be getting your point across. But here, when you say, I feel confident, then you want to fully explore what the feeling is. And a lot of people get tripped up between thinking and feeling, believing, if, you know, what does it mean? A lot of people, because we're not used to trusting that. We're not used to trusting our deepest feelings, our intuition. It's right there speaking to us all the time, but we're not raised to necessarily trust that part of ourselves. We've got so many other people who want to, you know, the religious figure, the political figure, all the other authority figures, or the parental figure, or the teacher.
It's a hierarchy of power, isn't it?
It's a higher, yes. And you even have instances, you know, of,
I like that look, Lene.
sports coaches, other people who, you know, are saying, trust me, but they have been not trustworthy. So everybody's very confused. Can I trust myself? Can I trust my own ability to feel? And that is really what I'm aiming for. And that's, you know, that is very important.
Well, what you're saying leads me to go back to why this is so important for us to teach this to younger people, because we learn how to separate from ourselves and we don't trust ourselves. And that's why we go into everything you've been describing, which is a joke. None of it means anything. So
exactly
that feeling of certainty. Here's what's interesting about that, is that all the negative stuff. Does anybody else hear all that wind?
I hear it, but I don't know where it's coming from.
Okay, I don't either. I can't tell. I'm not outside. It sounds like somebody's outside, but anyway.
I can't hear it.
I heard it before, but it's not coming through here.
That feeling of certainty, you know, people wonder about that. How can I be certain about my wish? Well, look at all the things you've manifested with that same feeling of certainty. I knew it wasn't going to work. I knew she was going to leave. Those are feelings of certainty. So that feeling of certainty is required for the manifestation to take place. It's just that what we have learned how to do is use that ugly feeling of certainty, that unwanted
Yeah.
feeling of certainty.
The
But
negative.
it still works.
The neg-
Yeah, but it still
That's
works.
true.
Because
It
that's
works.
how
It's going to
certain,
work either way. That's
it's
right.
the feeling
It's
of
gonna work.
certainty that's making it happen. It
Well,
always
that's
works.
right. Because, like you said, because imagination, the divide's going, it's neutral. It says, okay, is that the way you want to play? Fine, got it. Okay,
Totally
you're going to
neutral.
see, you're going to see, I'm the happy, loving boyfriend. I'm the happy, loving wife. You got it, and you're going to get that. So it's only going to respond to which way the feeling of certainty is going to run.
The Lord doesn't know the difference between the negative and the positive,
right,
or the ugly and the pretty. It doesn't know. So
Yeah,
whatever you're putting out there, you're going to get back. There's no different. It's indifferent, isn't it?
Well, that's exactly right. It's totally indifferent, and so that's why, like going back to what we said earlier, over the years of working with people, when you're saying you've been doing this, it's like saying to somebody, you've been building office towers all your life, but you didn't know you could do it. Now, you mean now I have to go to engineering school. Now I have to become an architect, and now I have to become an interior designer just in order to do this now, because I didn't know I was doing it before. What if I did them, bad buildings or something like that? So it's kind of like suddenly saying to somebody, you've been doing this, and that's what flips people, that flipping out moment really comes, and you can use this for to have the certainty in the opposite direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what
Absolutely.
I loved? There was a quote. I wrote down a quote from your book that's about consciousness knows no limit, and it said every possible outcome is already in stock, and I just loved it. Every possible outcome is already there.
Yeah, where else could it be?
Exactly.
I mean, we're not making up anything new. We just think it's new because we look at the old days and go, well, that didn't exist then. Well, yeah, it did, but nobody thought of it.
Yeah, this isn't new age.
Right. It's not the new age. It's just it's the same age, just going over again, over and over. But that concept that everything is created twice is really important.
Yes, I liked that
people,
section.
It's important for people to hear. And when I'm talking to a client, they've never heard that before. I said, think about it. Look at the computer you're on, the pen in your hand, the airplane, whatever it is. It was all created twice. First, it had to be created up here somewhere in somebody's mind. Somebody had to be thinking flying machine. However that happened, somebody came up with the idea of a flying machine. And then what happened after that? That led to a whole bunch of what Neville would call bridges of incidents. That led to a whole bunch of steps. And the steps are what everybody remembers. That's what they focus on. Oh, well, that wouldn't have happened if they didn't get an engineer and they didn't hire this and then test pilots and all that stuff. Oh, yeah, but what made all that happen? All of that happened, go back another step. All of that only happened because of somebody imagined it.
Yeah.
If they didn't imagine it, all that stuff would have never taken place. So it had to be imagined first. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. Think about it. It makes a lot of sense to people when they stop for a moment and go, yeah, well, okay, I guess the airplane couldn't have existed until somebody first imagined it. And then once they did, all those other, strategies took place. All those 3D world action steps took place. And then eventually the airplane was born. That's how it works. Everything, though, the pen, your computer, the mouse on your table, the cup that you got in your hand, none of that existed until somebody thought, oh, drinking device. How can we help human beings drink fluid? Oh, I know. I got an idea. How about a cylinder with a handle on it? And the cup is born. So we live in this world of everything is created twice. And it's the power that we keep forgetting about or are unaware of that begins I keep pointing to my head, and these people sometimes, where's your imagination, Dave? Like they want a very specific, organic answer in the brain, like it's right next to the reticular, whatever. I go, I don't know. Your whole body's imagination, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it's just in one little spot in your temple behind my finger. Like who comes up with that? But that's what the intelligent, I tell people all the time that they're making intelligent errors constantly, especially the athletes, because they're all very intelligent, but they make the intelligence screws us up because it keeps needing to come up with more stuff, more things to figure out, more answers, more detail. And we don't need any of that. I know Mike talks about that all the time in his podcast. And I know Mike was on here. I love Mike. And you all know that. And
we love
Mike is wonderful. We tell each other we love each other every time we speak.
That's sweet.
We just do. If we were, if he was a man, she was a man. If he was a woman, I'd be marrying him. and maybe vice versa. I don't know, but
kindred spirits.
Yeah, we have a very similar background, although different, but very similar self-concepts in our past lives. And we talk about that all the time, how I'll say something and he'll go, oh man, I did exactly the same thing. Stuff like that. And we get it.
Each other.
Yeah, I got him a chocolate cake one time. I heard him say that.
Yeah, he did.
I only did that because on one of his podcasts, he happened to mention I love chocolate cake. So I called his wife, Kim, and I said, can you keep a secret? And she said, yeah, why? I said, I want to call a bakery. Tell me the best bakery in your town. I want to call them and I want to have them make a chocolate cake just for Mike. And she couldn't believe it. So she gave me the name. It was the only one that was open because it was just after their hurricane and everything. But it happened to be one of the better bakeries in their area. So I ordered the cake and I said, well, I'm not going to pick it up because I'm like 3,000 miles away. And I'm not going to ask you to deliver it, but Kim is going to come and pick it up. Can you call her and tell her when it's ready? And they said, sure. And they made this gorgeous, he put it up on Facebook, this gorgeous chocolate cake with, I think I wrote on the top, imagination creates reality in the icing. They wrote that.
Oh.
And it just so happens his son got engaged that weekend that she picked up the cake. So they used it not only as a nice little fun gift from me, but they used it to celebrate his son's engagement at the same time. So it worked out really nice. And I know he's getting me this Paul McCartney thing, which I didn't even know existed. He texted me one day and he said, did you hear about the Paul McCartney book? And I went, no. He goes, he didn't say anything. And then 5 minutes later, he texted back. He says, I'm getting it for you. Because he couldn't hold back. He couldn't hold it in. So I said, what are you telling me you're getting it for me? You're ruining the surprise. He goes, I couldn't hold it in. I knew you would love it. And I just want you to know that I'm going to get it for you. Okay, great. Sweet. Great. Yeah, that's the kind of the stuff that we do a lot. I don't have many people in my life like him that I can do that with, but he's somebody that I met through the world of Neville, of course. And it's just really nice to have somebody like that in your world for me, because I don't have a history of having people like that in my world. If you can imagine the self-concept that I've been talking about, there's no way I'm having people like that in my life. They don't have a chance with me. They don't have a chance. And that's the other thing I noticed. When I look honestly at my self-concept, I see how people never had a shot with me. You could have been my girlfriend, my dad. You didn't have a chance. You weren't ever going to crack the code. I wouldn't let you. And I look at that and I start laughing hysterically and going, oh my God, look at what you did. Look at how you blocked. Look at how you left them out in the cold. Look at how it was so easy for them to wonder about me. And I see it all. The road is so clear. It's just crazy. But that's what I did. That's what I manifested. And I had no choice but to manifest that based on my self-concept. So everything fits very nicely. There's a tremendous sequence to the laws, which is why I like teaching them.
Talk about that. That's a very interesting point. A sequence to the laws. And that's not something people often talk about. It's because you just devote a little.
Well, before I met Neville, I had a program called Wired to Win, and I still do. And it was 7 laws, 21 days, transform the way you live, work, and play. And what I did was I put together 7 laws and I put them in a sequence. Now, I didn't invent the laws. These laws have nothing to do with what Neville talks about. These laws have to do with how the mind, the body, the emotion, and the energy function together to produce outcomes. So law number 1 is in the book. Law number 1 is the law of awake and asleep. And what I love about them is when I talk about them, it's all circle 2 based. It takes circle 1 out of the equation for everybody because the laws are provable. They're undeniable and they're provable. So all of that yeah, but stuff is out the window. There's no gray area there. And they work sequentially. Each law works sequentially. Every law produces an outcome and you can't avoid it. So we take the law of gravity, for example. That law produces an outcome every time you're engaged with it, right? Mm-hmm. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. Now it can produce a horrible outcome. Let's say you live in a 15-story building and you go up to the roof and you walk around the edge of the roof and you lean out towards the street, okay? If you lean out far enough, you're going down. That's gravity, okay? You can't say, oh, Dave, that law stinks. I hit the ground and I broke my body. That law's no good. No, the law's just fine. It's perfect. You're just using it really badly. That's all.
And you can't see it, but it's definitely there.
But it's very sequential the way it operates. 1 + 1 = 2 every single time. If you engage the law of awake and asleep, you are going to be awake. If you do that check-in question, am I awake or asleep right now? Every time you do that, you are going to be awake. It's not my opinion. It's not my theory. I didn't make it up. As soon as you ask that question, you are now awake. That's very sequential the way it operates. And then you're going to make a new choice and then you're going to get an outcome. Boom, 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 boom. Very sequential. Or you make no new choice at all and you have the same experience you always have. But it's always a sequence of step 1, become awake. Step 2, make a new choice. Step 3, have a new experience. Very sequential. So even the logical mind, even the intelligent mind people that I talk to are going to enjoy that. And I tell them that. I go, look, your logical mind is going to love this. You're not going to have to believe me just because I'm saying it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to prove it to you. And you're loving the sequence. It starts, in my opinion, loves that kind of sequence. It loves when something moves in a sequence. It accepts that more easily, I believe, or at least mine does, I guess. And I think a lot of people's minds can accept that more easily. It's like, oh, I see the road. I see the path. There it is. So that's what I meant by the sequence of the laws. Now, I have my 7 laws, but I happen to put them in a sequence, and each one builds sleep. Law number 2 is the law of focused energy. I'm now talking about energy in a way that most of these people never heard of. So again, for the golfer, for example, I'll say, think about your golf swing. All you're really doing is transferring energy from your body into the golf club, into the back of the ball. And they're like, what? No, this is not an esoteric conversation. Think about it. Well, what happens when you try to kill a shot or you're really frustrated and uptight? They go, oh, I hit a horrible shot. Do you know why? No. I said, well, I'll tell you why. It's really simple. It's because when you wanted to kill the golf ball, you wanted to crush it, your whole body tightens up. Your face is tight, your arms are tight, your hands are tight, your legs are tight. Everything tightens up. You're sitting there like this over the ball. And guess what? When you tighten up, think of your muscles. When your muscle tightens up, you're blocking the flow of energy. The energy is only moving between my thumb and my pinky right now. When my muscles relax, I have a much broader surface for the energy to flow, right? So when your energy is flowing, you have more power, you have more rhythm, You have more
Sure.
consistency. And they
Sure.
understand that. Even the golfer who never heard this before understands that and says, oh, I get that. Energy is flowing. I said, look, I could take you up to the driving range and I'll bet you'll hit the ball 10 yards further per club if I have you do some breathing exercises. And I've done that before. And they look at me in amazement. And they're not swinging any harder. They're not doing anything any different. It's just that the energy is now flowing from their lower body to their upper body, and they have more energy flow to give to the shaft of the golf club into the back of the ball. And they are just completely blown away. These are people who have no esoteric foundation whatsoever, no spiritual learning, none of that. But I'm still talking about it, but I'm making it so clear into their circle one world that they get it. So,
Yeah.
you know, I created this sequence of the laws so that each one builds on the one before, like that. But every law operates very sequentially.
That's right.
Also. Okay.
Yeah.
Shut
I
up.
mean, have you ever tried to cook a meal when you're angry or upset or tired or stressed? And what that is the experience, even if it's making a freaking sandwich, you know, that you're just slapping a slice of bologna between two pieces of bread, you know, and you grab, you know, some mayonnaise or something from the refrigerator. How's it going to taste? You know, it's like chances are you might have dropped the knife. You know, you mess something slops onto the counter, you know, and it's like, it's, you know, and then the cat starts talking to you and you're like, oh, go away. You know, it's like whatever it is, the whole experience of it is not a harmonious experience, you know. So it's because you're blocking your own flow of energy into the meal, right? You know, so it's
to relax, release the tension. And unfortunately, if you've missed any of David, please join us at the NevilleGoddardSummit.com, 4th to the 6th of June. Get your tickets now. They're only $25 a ticket. And be sure that you will have David all to yourself for a full hour. And we are also on the Neville Goddard Summit. We are on between the 4th and 6th of June. Our time is yet to be confirmed. However, we will definitely be there on the Saturday or the Sunday.
The Sunday. Yeah.
So do come and join us and follow us at Two Comma Coffee Club on all social media. Find us there. Well, ladies, thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Guys.
See you all soon. Thank you, David.
Thanks, David. Bye.
Bye.